Hey guys, it's Steve back with part 2 of our forest tutorial creation series in Blender. This is a CG Geek tutorial, and let's continue. So, in part 1 we created our tree using the skin modifier and kind of meshed our terrain around the base of it to get a good starting base here. In part 2 now I need to texture the tree and put the branches on it, and then I can kind of use this tree to add a lot more trees to our scene and fill out our forest a little bit. So exciting stuff. I will need a little bit more space on my terrain here for the trees in the background here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to object mode on my plane and just grab these vertices along the back here. I can deselect these along the side. Alright, cool. I'm going to go to top view and hit E to extrude and then just pull them straight back and then scale them up to kind of give ourselves a triangular shape going back there. And if I hit 0 on my my keyboard, you can see that it's lining up in the background there. I just want to kind of scale it up using proportional editing a little bit to line up along the background there. So we have all that more room for terrain now. And you can see the mesh is a little bit screwed up because we were using the dino topology on it. But if I just enable that again and kind of go over right here, I should be able to just smooth that out. Switch to my smooth brush here. Kind of smooth that all out. Clean up those vertices a little bit with the smooth brush. Alright, that should work fine. Good, we have some more space to work with now. So what I want to do though is I want to texture the tree and put the branches on it before I add more trees, because it will make the process a lot easier and quicker if it's already textured. So to start, well, let me see. It looks like I need to take out just a little bit more dirt here. So I'm going to quick do that. This is what I was doing at the end of part 1. You just use your sculpt draw brush, enable dynamic topology, and hold control and just kind of erase the dirt in there. Alright, so I just want to kind of take that down so I see a little bit more of the dirt in there. And it looks cool. Alright, so that's looking better. And you can spend more time or less doing this. I think I'll leave it like that for now. Kind of fill in that hole there. And good. So to texture the tree, if you needed to do like a really nice job, you'd have to use, let me think here for a sec. You'd have to use UV unwrapping, and you'd have to set some seams and kind of unwrap it that ways. But what I found worked pretty well actually is just using the Smart UV project. Now before we can do this, we need to apply our skin modifier. Now if you're not sure you're happy with your tree yet, you might not want to do this part yet. What I always like to do, just in case I need to go back, is I shift duplicate my tree and then move it to like the bottom layer here by just hitting M and then clicking down there with it selected. And then I can go ahead and apply this one, knowing I can always go back to my old version, which it still has the skin modifier on it. So now I'm going to go ahead though and apply the skin modifier. So click apply, and if I hit tab now, you can see it's all geometry. Cool. So I need to unwrap this so I can put a bark texture on it. Let me close my my toolbar there and split my window here, and I'll open up my first texture. Now there's going to be a lot of texture links down in the description, and most of them will be going to CG Textures, where you can find all the textures that I use. But if you're curious on how to find them, you just go to Google, go to cgtextures.com, and you can see all you have to do is search for something like bark, and with the free access to CG Textures, you get 15 credits, which means you can download 15 textures a day. And there's plenty of different bark textures to choose from. So just download whatever bark texture you want. This is the one I use for the tutorial, and like I said, there'll be a link in the description. So go ahead and download those. And now I'm going to go to my UV editor and open up my first texture. So let me grab that that bark texture there. Alright, and if I tab into edit mode, select all my vertices and go U, Smart UV project. I found taking the angle limit down just a little bit gave me a little better results. So go down to like 55, the angle limit. Everything else can stay as it is, and go OK. It'll take a second, and then you can see you have all your vertices unwrapped over here. So that's pretty nice. And the more you see going up and down, the better. You can see we have a few kind of on their side here, and these won't look too great once it's UV unwrapped. So you can kind of play around with the UV project angle limit and sometimes get better or worse results. So I'll try 45, and it looks like that might actually be a little bit better. So I'll keep that there and use that. So with that done, I should be able to switch to cycles render. So this can be done in cycles render. If you're wondering why you don't have the settings I do, it's probably because you're in Blender render. You need to be in cycles render. And let's go ahead and open up that, grab that bark texture there again. There we go. And I'll split my window one more time here along the vertical axis there, and go to my node editor. Here I can create my first material. So I'm just going to click new material, and you can see it changes the color of our mesh because that's selected, and we get a diffuse material. Now, for working in the node editor, I highly recommend that you use the add-on Node Wrangler. So go to user preferences and go add-ons, and then just search for Node Wrangler. You'll find Node Wrangler right there. Enable it. Now there's going to be a few other add-ons you'll need, like the sapling add-on in the near future. So enable that one as well. And then we'll also be using the images as planes add-on. So enable that one as well by checking that box there. It's very important that you enable these add-ons, otherwise you will not have the settings I have. Alright, so with all those enabled, we're good to go. So I can just go back to my my Blender file here, and we can start adding in our texture. So I'm going to go ahead and Shift A, and actually, hold on. With that, with the new Node Wrangler added, all we have to do is hover over a diffuse texture here and hit Control T, and it'll add in a texture, a mapping node, and a texture coordinate node. That's how much faster you can do things with the Node Wrangler add-on. It's awesome. So I highly recommend you get into it and start using it. So let's just put our bark texture in there, and if I go rendered now, you'll see it stretched out really large across our tree. Now before we can do too much rendering materials or anything, we kind of need to set up our scene. So I'm going to grab our basic lamp there that comes on the default scene, and I'll just turn it into a sun lamp. I'll choose use nodes, and I'll give it a strength of about 6, and give it just a slightly warm hue as the sun is. And then the size here is the size of the shadows, and I like to take these down a bit. So I'm going to go down to about 0.02. So we have a little harsher shadows. Alright, now I'm just going to kind of angle it coming like so, down through the trees. Like that will be pretty good, I think. And then go rendered. And you can see that the lighting now is looking a bit better on our scene. So let's work on this bark texture. Well, the main reason it looks really bad is because it's not textured across it enough times. So to make it tiled a lot more, you go to your mapping node and you type in a value of, say, I'll start with 18 by 18 and see what we get. And you can see that right away it doesn't look too bad. You have your texture being mapped across, and it doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look great yet, but it's not too bad. So we can kind of look at it now and see which ways we want to adjust it. So looking at these textures here, it looks like maybe I could have more along the X. So I'll go 20/20 along the X-axis, and we'll see what that looks like. This is the X, this is the Y, this is the Z if you're wondering. And that doesn't look too bad. It actually looks pretty good. You get a little bit of tiling if you put too many in, so maybe actually go smaller along the X. We'll see what that looks like. You just don't want too much tiling, repeating textures. But that's looking a little low quality there. I think we need to take it up a little bit. I'll go back to 20 there, and let me try a higher number along the Y there as well. And I don't think I need to go much higher than 20. So with both of them at 20, we get this result, and it's not looking too bad. We kind of check what the bark down here is looking like, though. This looks a little iffy. And if you're just not getting the results you're looking for, sometimes unwrapping it again with a different angle limit will give you something better. So we can try that. I'm not real happy with the way it's looking on the little roots down there, so I'm just going to go UV, Smart UV Project, and I'll go back to 65, and we'll see what kind of results we get with that. Alright, that's done. Switch to rendered view here, and we'll see what we're getting. Okay, Doesn't look too bad along here. Everything looks pretty good there. Just looks a little low quality still down here, but not terrible. So you can see you get different results, sometimes better, sometimes worse, depending on your scene and what you're going to be seeing. I think this will work. I'm just going to increase the number of tiles a little bit now because the quality is a little bit lower. Alright, that's not looking too bad. And maybe I'll go 22 there. Alright, excellent. That should work. It's maybe stretched a little bit along the Z. Let me crank that up a little bit more. Along the Y, I'm sorry. And that looks pretty good. So just a little higher along the Y looks okay. Alright, so let's get into more of the textures on this now. So first off, the bark texture is a little bit not what I want. Just the hue of it and the color is a little bit off. So I'm going to drop in a shader, and we'll make it a color hue saturation. Drop that on there. Now we can kind of change the hue a little bit to give it a little bit of a reddish hue. Let me just take it ever so slightly that direction. So about 0.48 is good. Is possibly a little bright. So take the value down a little bit there. And that's looking pretty decent. Now, as far as the fine details to this material, this can always be done a little later, because now that we have the material set up and the texturing done, repeating this texture won't be much of an issue. So I might just go ahead now and, well, no, why don't we go ahead and add the bump map to it and the glossy shader, just so we're getting a little better results. So I'm going to zoom in here on an area where I can see the bark nice and clear, bring my window out a little bit more, and let's just drop in a glossy shader first. So I'm going to go right here and just go Shift A, shader, mix shader, and then Shift A, shader, glossy shader. The shortcuts that you can be using with the node wrangler to be making this a little bit quicker. I'm not familiar with the node wrangler enough to do it too much, but if you wanted to dig into that, I highly encourage you to, because you can speed up your workflow a little bit. Alright, so that's looking very glossy, a little too glossy. I'll take that down a little bit, and what I want to do is to control the amount of glossy on this tree, I'm going to drop in a color ramp, so converter color ramp, and then connect the texture to it. And then if I go Control Shift left click, I can create a viewer as I click on that just to see what this is looking like. So that's a really awesome feature that the node wrangler brings. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of go for an area where the black is going to be where you don't see specular or glossy, and the white is going to be where you see glossy. So that's right about what I want, just a little bit more black. And I'll use this as a factor in a mix shader. And you can see that looks a lot better right away. Alright, so there's some glossy to our tree. Trees aren't very glossy, so we don't want to add too much. And now I'm just going to drop in a bump shader. So to do that, it's just a converter vector bump, and I'll take the color here as the height, and then I'll plug this into the diffuse and into the glossy. And if I zoom in here, you'll see we got bump coming. Now that's looking pretty decent, and not too bad. I might drop in a color ramp here as well, converter color ramp, to kind of tweak the amount of bump. If I go to this again, I might want to bring the black up again, just to give it a little more contrast. Make sure that these are real bumpy and those are less bumpy. Bring the white in just a little bit as well. And then, alright, that's looking pretty good. Jump back and you can see it's not looking too bad. So for the final step in this this process of creating a material, what I want to do is add a little bit of a normal map to this wood texture. Now this wood texture is off CG Textures, and I don't have a wood normal map, but there's this really awesome website online that that allows you to create normal maps. So I'm going to quick go to that website here, jumping back to my web browser. I have it bookmarked here, so let me just quick bring it up. There'll be a link in the description. Alright, so here's our website. It's just called Normal Map Online, and it works very well. It's very cool, and it's GPU powered, so awesome. Basically all we have to do is open up our picture over here. I'm just going to grab that tutorial file here, and grab our texture that we used, that bark texture. Alright, good. Open it up, and you can see it generates a normal map very quickly. You can kind of adjust the strength. This is the normal map down here that you're getting, the level. And I just kind of went for a lot of level, finding what I like with the amount of bump and blur. I'm not real familiar with how this all works, but something like that looks pretty good to me anyways. Just kind of maybe a little more strength and something like that. You can see the result over here in real time, so that's awesome. Looks pretty good. So then you can choose your file format, PNG, normal map, and just click download. Alright, save the file to your desktop, and then we'll open that up in Blender and use it as a normal map. So I'll jump back to Blender here now. I'll drop in a new texture, so just shift do that texture and open up. And this is just going to be on our downloads folder now. And let me see here, it will be called normal map. Open that up. Alright, and if I go Control Shift click on it, you can see it's looking like the normal map. I'll just drop that vector in there. Alright, and what I want to do is change it from color to non-color data. Alright, and now all I have to do is add in one more node, and that's a vector normal map node. So go ahead and drop that in. Open up your UV map here. This is the UV map option there, and then drag your texture into the color. And then I can take this normal and plug it right into my bump, and I'll have the normal being applied to my entire tree. And it just adds a bit more realism. So it's a really cool cool little website there for adding normal maps. And it's looking pretty good. I might want to tweak my bump a little bit here. And I can turn the amount of normal up or down here. So if I go to like 5, you should see quite a bit of normal mapping, and if I go less, you'll see less. I think what I left it at is something like 1 or 2 though, nothing crazy strong, and that's looking pretty nice, I think. Let me just check this over real quick. No complaints. Maybe making the distance a little larger here, and then taking the strength down just a little bit would be good. Alright, that's looking pretty good in there. Alright, so not bad. You can see the reason I did the non-color data is because if I go color, you get some weird lighting issues across. So changing that to non-color data just kind of cleans that up and looks a bit better. So that's looking pretty nice though. The texture, you know, it can be tweaked some more. Maybe a little bit more glossy would be nice. So I'll just go to my glossy amount here, and the more you turn the white up, the more glossy you're basically going to get. So something like that. And you can see you get a little more gloss. That's too much, but something like that's not too bad. And yeah, you're getting some nice looking bark material there. It might be a little bit flat. You can always take like the saturation up a little bit if you want it to be a little bit more vibrant. Kind of like that. So there's our bark material. Let's get on to our branches now. So for the branches, I'm going to use that add-on I just enabled, the sapling add-on. And I'm just going to go to a new layer down here. So click on layer 2, go Shift S, cursor to center, just so it's nice and easy to see. Then I'll hit 1 on my my keyboard, and I can turn off my background image now. I don't need that. So just hit N and then turn off background images. Hit N again and close it off. So I'm going to go Shift A and add in a curve sapling, add tree. This is because I enabled the sapling add-on. If you don't see it, you gotta enable the add-on in the user preferences. So open that up, hit T, and we'll see all of our settings at the bottom here. Now one thing that kind of confuses a lot of people with the sapling add-on is once you leave this, once you click on something else or unselect it, you lose all your settings. So you gotta make sure that you're happy with your tree before you leave it. Alright, so with my settings here now, I'm gonna choose bevel, and I'm going to make the scale of it a bit smaller. And basically what I'm doing is creating a branch. Instead of a whole tree, I'm just going to use a branch. I found this worked well for the trees because instead of making all kinds of little twigs and adding leaves on top of the twigs and everything else, I could basically make branches right with the sapling add-on on top of my custom tree, and it worked pretty well. So I'm going to take the curve resolution down a little bit. This doesn't have to be high res. Go to branch splitting. and give it a base size of not too much. Take the number of branches down quite a bit. Give it some segment splits. Kind of split that up a little bit. Let's give it a base split. So you can see the base is split there. And then, alright, that's looking pretty good. Now the split angle, or the down angle, is what you kind of want to use to pull those branches down a little bit. And then I want to make the length of these branches a bit longer. Let me just go back to front view here so I can kind of see what I'm doing better. Right now it looks still like a tree, and what makes it look more like branches is when you go to the branch growth settings and take the length of these branches up a bit. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like branches. I'll take these down a little bit, and that's looking a little better. I can take the resolution down too, because these are just branches and they're not going to be too high res. The lower res, the quicker things will work. So kind of adjusting the curvature here too can give you some more of a branch-like look, giving the whole branch a little bit of curvature there, and you can see it's starting to look a bit more like a branch. So I'm going to take those down a little bit, go back to my branch splitting, and I'm going to take the number of branches down some more still. So let's try 20 right now. Let's go down about 16. Alright, that looks pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with that branch actually. I think it will work well. So I'm going to go to my leaves now, and I can go ahead and add the leaves right onto the branch with this awesome little add-on. So I'm going to go show leaves. You can see right now they're hexagonal. I'm going to change them over to just a rectangular because I'll be using a texture with them. And why don't we actually open up that texture real quick so I can see the shape of it, so I can kind of decide what I want the shape of the leaves to be. So I'm going to go open image over here, just image, open image, and I'm going to open up my my leaf texture here. Alright, so you can see it's kind of rectangle. So you want your leaf to be kind of rectangle like it is right now, but maybe just a little bit less scaled along the X. Something about that should fit the leaf pretty well. And let's take the whole overall scale up a little bit with the leaf scale here. Make it a little bit bigger. Alright, that's looking pretty good. And then we can take the number of leaves up or down. I might go down a little bit on it. Down to about 10. Take the scale down a little bit. Alright, so we have the leaves on our branch, like so. And it's looking actually pretty decent. Let me just make sure the scaling on the leaf... Alright, the scaling on the leaf is off right now. You can see they're wide in the wrong direction. So I want to change that down to about that, so the leaf is rectangular in that direction. Cool. Maybe just scale it up a little bit. Awesome, that should work very well. So once you're happy with your leaf, it helps if you're making multiple branches to save this as a preset. So I'm going to jump back to my geometry. I'm going to name the preset branch. Alright, and then I'm going to go export preset. And preset already exists because I've done this already. So I'll go branch 2, export preset. Now in your presets here, you'll have branch 2. So really easy to make multiple branches with varying randomizing results by just going the random, random seed right here. And you can choose different branches basically and get a bunch of different results. And then you can always jump back to your preset branch 2, which is your basic. The one thing is the preset doesn't keep the leaves, so you will have to go to your leaves and turn them on, but that's no biggie, and we can work with that. So that looks pretty good, and I think I'll save that. So to save it, you just basically click on it, and then your settings will disappear as soon as you deselect it. And it's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to grab these, and I'm going to move them to the side because I want to quick add one more branch for some variation. So go ahead and go add tree again. This time we'll just grab our preset of branch 2 there. You see you got a nice branch. We'll choose a random, whoops, that's the wrong option there. Alright, let me quick do that again. Add tree, branch 2. And then the random seed is what you want to change. So we'll go until we get a different branch that is pretty good. They're not, right now they're all kind of going to the same angle, but that's okay because that's just because I set the one setting to be angled. Some of these look a bit different though, and they'll work pretty well. That one looks pretty nice. I can just scale it up a little bit here with the scale option, and that looks pretty good. Alright, that one's good. So then I'll just go to my leaves, I'll go show leaves, and ready to rock another branch. So that should do it. Maybe I'll add a little bit more leaves in this branch just to give it some variation. Maybe make it just slightly bigger leaves. Cool. So let's go ahead and quick texture these branches now. So first of all, they're as curves right now. If you go to tabbing in edit mode, you can see they're all curves. I need to just go Alt C, convert mesh from curve. Now it's a nice mesh, and I can go tab, select it all, U, Smart UV project, and unwrap it. And do the same with this one. Alt C, convert it, tab to edit mode, grab it all, U, Smart UV project. And with that done, I can grab my wood material here, which is the only material I've really created yet. Let me go ahead and name that wood, and I'll link it to these materials by grabbing it there. So now if I go rendered, you'll see that both these have the wood texture on it. Good. Everything is looking pretty good. Now if you wanted to, you could change this wood to be its own texture, because I can make the scale a little bit smaller then. So I think I'll go wood.branch. Whoops, that's not how you spell branch. There we go. And I'll give that to both of these, give them the wood branch material. And then here I'm just going to turn the number it's tiled way down. So this is only going to be tiled like that many times, 6 and 8, about half, about a quarter. And then you can see the texture looks a little bit better on it. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now we just need to add our leaf material onto these leaves. So let's go new texture. Let's just go ahead and right away name it leaf. Whoops, let's leave. Leaf. There we go. And over here we can go Command T. Or is it Control T? Control T. Open that leaf texture that we opened already. I need to open it again. Textures. That leaf. There we go. And if we go rendered, we should see the leaves. So the leaves need to be adjusted a little bit on the UV map here. I'm just going to tab into edit mode, grab all those leaves, and then over here, with them all selected, I'm going to grab that image of the leaf, and you can see this is what the UV map is right now. And if you go to textured viewport in your viewport shading here, you can see what they look like, and I can just kind of adjust these until they're looking the way they should. So I'm going to rotate them and scale them and place them right on the tree like I want them. Something like that. And there you go. You can see your leaves are all nicely attached to the branches, and it looks pretty good. And that looks pretty good. So now that I have that, I go rendered, and you can see it has leaves on the tree. That's a black because we haven't taken the alpha out yet, but it looks pretty nice. So one other thing that you might want to do is add some varying scale to these leaves because they're all the same size. So to do that, you can just tab into edit mode, switch to face select down here, and then go select random. This will randomly select some leaves, and you can just go to your options here, your pivot point, and change it to individual origins, and then scale those down a little bit. So now you have some bigger and some smaller leaves, and that just looks a little bit more realistic. So that works well, and we're ready to move on. So I can go ahead and grab the same material and put it on these leaves. I will need to drop the leaf material there. I will need to rotate this again and fit it over the leaf for these leaves as well. But that should do it okay. Just check, and they look good. You can do the same thing again with selecting random and scaling them down a little bit. Turn down proportional editing a little bit there too. Alright, so we got our leaves and we're ready to finish this material up a little bit. So let me quick drop in a transparent shader. I'm just going to go Shift A, shader, transparent. Where do we have it? It's right under my nose, I'm sure. Translucent, transparent. I'm going to use that with a mix shader. Drop it in the bottom socket there. And then I'm going to use the alpha on our texture as the factor. And now if I go rendered, we see that we have the cutout there, and we just need to flip the inputs there on our texture, and now we have our leaves. So that's looking pretty nice. Now before I can really set up this material, I need to see the sunlight on him. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my sun lamp, grab it. And if I hit M and then hold shift, I can put this on multiple layers. I'm just going to put it on all 5 of those top layers there. So now you can see it's linked to every layer, and I go to this layer and my sun's there. So now I can go rendered, and I can see what it's kind of looking like on my leaves. So my leaves need a little bit of work. First of all, they need some glossiness, and they need some translucency. So let's just do that right away. We'll drop in a glossy shader, so Shift A, shader glossy, and add in a mix node to mix that in with the diffuse, so it's only partially glossy. Let's take that off. So we have just our glossy there. We'll take the amount down a bit. Alright, something like that, not too glossy. And then we need that translucency I was talking about. So we'll drop in an add shader. This is different than a mix. We want to add the translucency to it, and then I'll add in a translucent node, drop it in the bottom there, and then the color needs to be hooked up for the translucent node, so grab that image texture as a color and drop it in there. Alright, so now you can see it has a much softer look. This is what it looks like without the translucency, this is what it looks like with. It lets a lot more light pass through the leaves and just looks a lot more realistic. Okay, so that's looking pretty nice. If we just dropped in a bump node now, we can increase it a little bit more. So I'm going to drop a bump node in, connect that up to the height, and then hook up the normal to the normal on these nodes. You can see that that's too much bump, but it's looking pretty good. So we'll take the strength down to about 0.3, and we'll have some nice looking leaves. So one last thing, if we want to add a little random color to these leaves, which always looks good, I'll show you how to do that. So I want some of these to be maybe a darker green and some of them to be the way they are. So to do that, what you want to do is add in an input object info. We'll drop that in up there, and then I'll go Shift A, converter. I think I'll use a color ramp, put that in there under the random. And then I'll drop in a, there's a few ways I could do this. I could just make some of the leaves more saturated and some of them not, or I could actually give them all random color. I think I might give them random color. Whew, well, I had a crash, and a crash is not good if you haven't saved in a while, and I hadn't, so that was a bummer. It took me a while to catch back up, but I think I got everything back to where I was. So just remember to save your project. You'll never regret saving your project. But I think I'm back to where I was, and I was going to add in some random color to these leaves. So the way to do that is you want to go to your image texture here. Let me just grab all 3 of these nodes with box selecting them, pull them back a little bit. To add some random color, you want to use the input object info node. Here you have the random slot, and you can drop in a color ramp. Let me just do that, color ramp. Use the random in the factor, and then I can have it randomize any sort of color I want added on top of this. So to add one on top of it, I'll drop in a color mix node, and I'll change it to screen. Alright, and now I'm just going to choose what colors I want to kind of show up in there, and it's going to be some different shades of green. So I'll grab one shade there, another shade there, and I'll just drop another one in there by hitting Control and then right clicking. Another shade there, maybe just drop one more in there. Make it a little bluish, darker. Alright, so we have some different shades of green, and they don't look too bad. Let me make this one maybe a little brighter, something like that. Alright, you can make them as different as you want. I'm just going to take them and have it screened into the bottom here. And you can see you get some randomizing color in there. And so that's pretty cool, and it gives it some a bit more of a realistic look. You can turn the amount down to like 0.3 or so, and there you go. Get a little bit of randomizing leaf color. So I think that should do it pretty much for our branch material. Our glossy might be a little strong, but that can always be tweaked easily enough. So there we go, and let's go ahead and put these branches on our tree. That should wrap up part 2 then. So what I want to do is take these leaves and apply them to the branch. So I'm just going to grab the branch, then the leaves, and just go Control J. And that will just join them together as one. So grab them both, Control J. Awesome. So let's put these into a group now. So grab both of them and go Control G, and then you'll have your group name here if you open your toolbar. And I'll just name these branches. Alright, so close off the toolbar, back to our tree. Let's add some branches onto these trunks, basically. So to do that, I'm going to switch to my weight paint mode first, and I'm going to paint on where I want my branches. So I want the branches to be across the top of the trees. So I'm just going to kind of go along and find the areas where I want more branches. So you kind of have to be careful. You can't go too crazy on the amount of branches you put on, especially where you'll see detail a lot, because it won't look super good if it's close up. So I'm just going to put on a few around here, a few around there, and that should do it. Let me see what it looks like in camera view. Got some of the branches coming out there, but not too many in here. I think that'll do it pretty good. So now for the rest of these can be a little less carefully placed, because they'll be more of the background trees, and you won't be seeing them too much. So you just kind of want the tips of them where you think it should split some more to have these on them. I think that looks pretty good, actually. So pretty easy, and there we go. So now I can go ahead and add a particle system and use those branches. So to do that, we're just going to go to our particle settings. Let me quick save, because I'm paranoid about that now. You never want it to crash. So now I'm going to switch my type to hair. You get some crazy hair coming on there. I'll take the number of particles down to about 150 hair strands, I should say. Choose advanced and scrub down to group. We want to choose group, and we want to choose our branch group. Now you see those branches across our tree there. If I go to the very bottom here, I can go to vertex groups, and the density should be that group I just created. Now you can see they're kind of on the end of our branches like we want. I'm not seeing any over here though, and I'm seeing some down there, so I don't want that. Let me quick go to my weight paint view mode and subtract. So grab my subtract brush. And it looks like maybe I painted some down here that I don't want. So I can just kind of subtract that around here. Maybe I need to crank the strength up to make sure I'm getting that all the way. Alright, I'm not seeing it take them out. That's kind of weird. Well, let me see if they just go away when I change some more of these settings. So you can try a different seed too. Maybe that will get rid of them. That's helping a little bit. We get some more branches over here. And we need to take the size up a little bit. Let's kind of zoom in here and see what they're looking like. And alright, we need to go up with the size a bit. So let me take the size up to about, whoa, not so crazy high. I think I'll take my subsurf down a little bit just because it's running a little slow for me. There we go. Then back to my particle settings. Take the size up a bit. Something like that. And then what else I found that I kind of liked is, well, first off, I need to rotate my branches. I just remembered, if you want them to look nice, you need to rotate them 90 degrees when you're in front view. So go ahead and do that. Now, in your particle settings, you can choose rotation under your branch settings, and they'll be nicely rotated and placed about. Alright, so these branches look about the right size, maybe a little big actually. I'll crank the random size up a bit. Alright, and what I like to do is the branches normally kind of grow upwards, and so to kind of make them all grow upwards, you can take the emitter along the Z and crank that value up a little bit. Alright, now you can take the normal emission value down a little bit, and just a little bit of that will help make it look like they're growing upwards. Okay, maybe a little Brownian motion to kind of spin them around a little bit. A little more random size, maybe. And it's not looking too bad. Something around there. And now I think we just need to add about twice that many branches in. Maybe even more. And then if I want to check my weight paint, make sure that, whoops, I'm erasing. I want to go back to adding. Make sure it's coming across there nicely. You don't want them like just on the bottom like that, so you kind of want to make sure they're all over the place. Alrighty, it's looking not too bad. Okay, now I think I just want to make them a little bit bigger, a little bit more random size, and then even more, because we got a big tree here. Alright, so you can kind of see we're filling out our tree the more we kind of change these settings around a bit. And it's looking not too bad. Maybe make that a little bit more. Still getting a few at the bottom here. What you can do to make sure you're not getting any down here is just select all those vertices down there. Go to our group here and just choose remove. So now there really shouldn't be any down there. Still seeing some, that's weird. There's like no way there should be. Let me do that one more time. Grab them all and remove them from the group. I don't know, that's kind of weird. We'll just have to go with it for now though. There we go, trying a different seed might help. They really want to come out down there though. There we go, that kind of helps. And that's looking not too bad. So if I go to rendered view, just to kind of see what these leaves are all looking like, we should see something like this. And I'm not seeing my leaves. What might be causing that? Let me think here for a second. I'm seeing some in here, but not the number I want. Maybe I didn't join them? It's kind of strange. I know one thing you want to set up is in your render settings here, under your passes here, light pass, you want to change the transparency to be up to about 48 or so. 48 is about the highest you can go. So that will make sure that you can leave that one at 8, but the minimum should be, the maximum should be like 48. The minimum could be 8. So that is letting the light pass through the different leaves on there. Alright, so let me see if that's working yet. If I go back to rendered, was that the issue? Nope, it doesn't look like I have any leaves on the trees. Interesting. Alright, let me quick check my groups here one more time. See how these are rendering. Oh, no, I lost my leaf texture. Let me quick see if maybe they got assigned to the wrong thing here. Grab that leaf, select. It looks like there's still assigned there. Let me check my node here real quick. Alright, so I quick found the issue. It was when I combine the leaves with the branch, it makes two UV maps, and I need to tell the material now to use the new UV map that it made there. It's called leaf UV. So if I go to my leaf settings, you see it's set up just with my normal texture coordinate here. I can go ahead and delete both of these and just add in an input attribute node. Connect that up, and then you can see that the leaf UV is what it is called. So just go ahead and type in leaf UV. Make sure you capitalize the UV because that's important. And then if you render, your leaves will be rendering nicely. So that should be working on both these branches. Correct, yes. So now if I go to my entire tree, let's just pull this out here, see how she's rendering. Alright, and you can see we get some nice greenery up on that tree. It's not looking bad at all. So it's looking pretty nice. If I go to 0 to go to my camera view here, you can see that everything's looking nice. You got some nice shadows on the ground, and nothing to complain about. Let me zoom in on these leaves here. The branches are looking okay. Not too bad. So that should do it for our tree. If you wanted to add in more variation in branches, you can go ahead and create more and just add them to that group. But that should do it. So let me quick add in, go to weight paint here, add in just a few more leaves up there, and maybe increase the total amount to be more like 600. Just because I like a lot of leaves. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. So yeah guys, that should do it for part 2 of our forest creation tutorial series. We have our tree, we have our leaves, we're ready to start putting them out and creating more and more trees now easily. So hope you're enjoying the series this far, and if you are, post your results in the comments this far, and I'll catch up with you in a few days when part 2 is, or 3 is out now, part 3. So see you later, bye bye.